Hello and welcome to another comedian's interview for my blog and podcast, A Rich Comic Life. My name is Richard Gill and my blog describes my experiences of watching over 1,400 comedians for the last 50 years. My guest today is the wonderful Richard Stott. Yes!
Thanks for having me on. Glad to be here.
How are you? You all right?
I'm very well, yeah. I'm very good.
Good
Nice sort of relaxing Sunday. So.
Good to see you. Thank you so much for being my guest.
Oh, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me on. What 1,400 comedians you've seen?
That's bonkers, I know. Absolutely, yeah. I've made a list of every one of them on a massive spreadsheet, and they become my blog, which is just incredible. So I've got the blog running, and I've got the podcast going with all the interviews.
Yeah, that's incredible. Yeah,
which is just amazing. But it's because I'm passionate about it all. So and it's wonderful finding talent like your good self, because I think you're very original, and we'll talk about that.
Oh, thank you very much.
Within the interview. Let's start the interview off and go right back to the start. How did you become a comedian in the first place?
I actually I was working as an actor in the industry for a long time, and obviously so many comedians sort of start off that way and make that jump. And I have to admit, for quite a few years I was a little hesitant to sort of admit that, because I think sometimes people make a judgment on you. People just go, "Oh, you're just doing this because you like the attention, you like being on stage," and it's true. But the hardest thing that I had to do for the first few years is just make out that I would just not perform things, don't come across as an actor on stage, come across as genuine. And I sometimes teach stand-up comedy after drama school, and that's basically all I work on with them, is just getting them to stop presenting and performing. So that's where I came from. I was writing a blog about sort of my life experiences and things, and people kept suggesting I should turn it into a one-man show. And back in 2011, I'd helped the Manchester Comedy Festival. I'd been a venue manager for them. That doesn't exist anymore. It was a great festival, but
I used to go there. Yeah.
Back in 2011, I had people like Alexis Dubas, Dana Alexander. They were staying over at my flat because they were playing my venue, and it really opened me up to the world of comedy. But fast forward up to 2017, I'd started writing this one-man show, and the more I wrote it, the more it sort of lent itself to comedy. So I started taking it to open mic nights, and I kind of never really looked back from there.
That's brilliant. That's so good. Can you describe your first ever gig when you first did this?
Yeah. I mean, like so many other comedians, especially on the London circuit, my first gig was at the Cav, which I'm sure you've been to a number of times.
Cav in the Shams,
Yeah, I did Comedy Virgins on a Tuesday night, and I didn't win it. I got the buy you a drink thing, but I didn't win the mini trophy at the end. It was the only time I've actually done Comedy Virgins, but I had a great time. And it was 5 minutes, and I kind of wrote something off the top of my head just before. And because I'd watched a lot of comedy and I've worked with comedians, but also coming from a theatre standpoint, I've worked with a lot of written stuff. So I felt like I knew how to tell a story, and I knew what would work and what wouldn't. And I mean, I'd probably look back at, if there was footage of that, I'd look back at that and cringe, but it went well, and never really looked back at it. And it was so nerve-wracking. I was the last one they put on.
Right.
Pulled their names randomly, and I had some friends there, and We didn't know how it was going to go. I was quietly confident that it wouldn't be terrible, but I don't think there was a single joke. Like, looking back at it, I don't think I told a single joke during that. Just an odd story that seemed to ride me through.
So it was more storytelling than gags.
Yeah, very much.
Mm, mm.
Yeah, very much. And I think that sort of described how I was at the very early stages of my career. I could tell a great story and I could hold people's attention, but I kind of worked out, pretty quickly that I just needed to up the gag rate and concentrate on writing jokes. And I did, work really hard on writing one-liners, really stupid one-liners,
Yeah.
taking inspiration from comedians that I was sort of gigging with at the time and realizing that it doesn't have to be the cleverest thing in the world. It can be silly. It could just be a bit of wordplay. It could just be something absurd. And the more I've tried out with that, I mean, I've been fairly successful with my one-liners, but I've sort of come full circle. I'm moving away from that now.
Yeah. I first went to the Manchester Comedy Festival. It would be somewhere around it was the mid '90s, something like that. We saw Lee Evans and we saw Jeff Green do half-hour sets before they were famous, and we saw Liam Herring in Manchester play what used to be Lowry. So I have a very good friend. My home city's Carlisle, and I have a very good friend from Carlisle who moved and settled in Manchester. And whatever comedy I'd miss in the 80s and 90s, I'd go up to Manchester and see it with him. And so that's why I would go to Manchester a lot to see them. And
well, it was a great festival, honestly. Like my memories of it, even just been involved in it for that one year.
Yeah.
Not at all as a performer, just as someone just making it work, getting the cogs turning, really. But it was mostly run by the Comedy Store at that point, because the Comedy Store had that. Do you remember how good that venue was?
Yeah.
The Comedy Store in Manchester was unbelievable. The one under the Arches, which I believe is gone now.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
We used to go there as well. Yeah, I saw Mick Ferry there, compere, and he was brilliant. He was a regular compere there, and he was superb. Many.
So I mean, during my time working there, that's what I met. Weirdly, I just made all these contacts that just come off the back of the Fringe, you see.
Yeah.
And they're all playing my venue. And I was hanging out with Larry Keane and Scott Agnew, and Miles Lloyd was gigging still at that time. And then there was Dana Alexander was there. Alexis Dubas was doing Marcel Lecon.
Yeah.
We had John Lynn come down, and I didn't know any of them really. But we became really good friends, and Tom Tuck came and played it, and it was weird to step away from that completely, and not come back until 2017, 2018. And I've weirdly, as a new comic, I sort of had these contacts distantly from I felt
That's
comfortable
brilliant.
to go up and say hello and chat to. It's something that certainly it definitely gave me some confidence moving into it, but also just loved hanging out with comedians compared to hanging out with actors.
Yeah. Very
really
much so.
Yeah, it's more
the Cavendish Arms as well, infamously. I support new up and coming comedians as well as the big hitters. The blog goes the whole range, and I've seen many act start off at the Cavendish Arms. I know Brendan O'Donoghue used to be regular compere there, and he's been on here, and we used to go every week to see them. There were so many good comedians who started off, and it was interesting that, like you started there. It's a very good grounding.
Yeah. And when I'm teaching stand up, if there's any that really want to go and do it, that's the first place I tell them to go and do it.
Yeah.
Because it's supportive, but
Yeah.
it's also not. You get a realistic reaction. It's you're never going to get a horrible reaction, but if they're not going to big you up if it's not funny.
Yeah.
Which is I think a mistake quite a lot of comics make early on, is they just, every gig that they do, they invite 10 friends with them. And then suddenly they do a gig where none of their mates are there.
Yeah.
Then they get the real reaction. And sometimes I've seen people get shocked by that. I've never had that problem because I've never really had 10 friends to bring to anything.
I'm sure that's not right.
It's not far from the truth. I'm very happy with my small pool of people.
My next question is, what do you like to talk about on stage? Now, when I saw you, you're a joke. You were literally joke. So do you have any specific themes to your jokes, or do you have any themes to your stories, or what is it that you like to try and get across when you're on stage?
I'm relatively still early on in my comedy career, I guess. So, but it is changing. When I started off, I very much just focused on a disability that I've got, and we talked about that. And there was people were very interested in that story. But that's sort of done now, and I'm moving on to other things. But then at the moment, I'm having a lot of fun about just talking about being a sort of aging millennial, and what that feels like to feel young in your mind, but you've started to notice that your body is failing you a little bit in some senses.
That's me.
Yeah.
And I'm not a millennial. That's just age.
And then the sort of absurdity. I mean, I don't like to stay too London centric, but it's where I live, so I get a lot of my material from my surroundings.
Sure.
But the absurdity of London and the juxtaposition of like wealth, and you meet people who are just flying so high in their career, and then there's you just trying to keep up and sort of pretend that you can all go and drink in the same bars. It's
That's so true.
It's something new that's emerging from me. My next show I'm writing is about my time working at Borough Market.
Right.
I worked on Borough Market for 3 years, and I think a lot of the material that I'm pulling out of that is the sort of the dynamic of the staff at Borough Market, where hardened traders or art students, and it's that dynamic within the market, and then plus you insert all these tourists from all over the world who are so excited to be there. So I'm having fun with the dynamic, like the sort of the dynamic of different relationships, where it be age, generation, class, how different genders approach things. I've got a great bit I like to talk about how women talk about their feelings and how great they are with it, and how they go to war for each other, and how blokes just really don't. They're not very good at talking about their feelings. They just kind of like sit back. I think you saw that bit. It was a sad girl coffee morning bit. It's been my favourite bit to perform over the last 12 months.
Well, I am coming to see you again, because we're recording this in January. It might not go out until about summertime because the backlog of the interviews I've got to put on. But I am coming to the Leicester Comedy Festival, and I noticed your name was on there when I'm there, so I might well come and see. Is this the new show that you'll be previewing there?
Yeah, it's a work in progress of the new show, and it's called Trade. And it's about being a trader on Borough Market, but it's also looking at the sort of the relationship that millennials have to work. How I've been told that I don't work hard enough, and loads of millennials told that you just don't work hard enough and everything like that. And it's like, well, maybe we don't actually work that hard, because there's not really anything to save for.
Yeah.
There's nothing realistically for us to break our backs over, because maybe we don't see a prize at the end of it.
I think the
Or
same.
maybe it's just a perception.
Yeah.
I remember I was working for quite a big company last year, and there was an older lady that works as one of the personal assistants, and we always used to talk about things in the canteen, all like, all just, very, very high spirited and no bad blood between us. But she would say, your generation doesn't work hard. The directors of this company, they built it from the ground up. I remember one of them, he slept under his desk and he worked 2 days straight. And I went, yeah, but you don't have to do that anymore because we've invested in computers. I was like, you can't, there actually isn't enough work to do. Like, there genuinely isn't. I've done all my work. I think
my background's very wide. My working background's administration. I love my job and I've been doing it for 30 years. But when I first started, it was all paper. It was all filing, and now that just went, and it's now all on the PC, and you're doing all these
whole chunk of like man hour and everything basically gone. Nobody has to sort of work as graft as much as they used to, maybe, and that's a good thing. That's great.
Yeah, very much so. That sounds fascinating. I'm definitely coming to see you. Tell me about your writing process then for a routine or a show. So this new show, you had the idea of you working in Borough Market, and then how do you structure the show? Don't obviously tell me the content, but how do you go about structuring your show?
So we're early stages, but I think we're going to set the scene. 2017, I'm working at Borough Market. It's the first, and then I'll go into my relationship with work and why I've had a fractured relationship with the world of work.
Yeah.
Well, the reasons why that may be, going into education, and how certain events in my education just made me go, I'm not really going to amount to anything. And then you always bring it back into the story of working at Borough Market. And then you bring up American tourists, or just tourism in general, and what that's like to deal with, which will go quite well in a French thing.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, then you talk about gentrification, and then you always bring it back to the market, because there is an ongoing story within the market. Because what happened when I was there, and it's in the blurb, this isn't a spoiler, I would never use this as a spoiler, but when I was working at Borough Market, the London Bridge terror attack happened.
Right.
And I'm not going to use that as like a pullback, reveal, shock, horror. My God, it's something that happened when I was there, and it's something that we all sort of collectively went through as workers there. I wasn't there when it happened. I'm going to say that straight at when I bring that up in the show. I'm like, I was not there when it happened, but I was there working in the aftermath of it.
Wow.
And then, essentially, I've got the lessons of what working at Borough Market told me, and how what have I brought from that into my life going forward. So it's always coming back to the central story, looking back on something in the past.
Yeah. But you're adding layers to it. Yeah. Fascinating. I can't ever imagine you having a bad gig, because the times I've seen you, which is twice, you're very warm on stage, and there's an originality about your act, and so I can't imagine you ever having a bad gig. But am I in Cloud Cuckoo Land? Have you ever had a bad gig?
I have had bad gigs.
Yeah. Would you like to tell me about them?
Yeah, of course. I will caveat though, I've not had many bad gigs.
No. Well, tell me a bad one and tell me a good one.
Oh, of course. I think the worst one I ever had, it was right after I'd done the Fringe 2019.
Right.
And I got booked to do a show on a compilation. I was middling. up in Topcliffe, which is just below Newcastle.
Yeah.
And I went all the way up there, and Matt Richardson was opening.
Oh, he's brilliant. Yeah.
This is their thing, right? How good is Matt Richardson? He's fantastic.
Yeah.
And he went on for 20 minutes, and he had a horrible time for 10 of those minutes.
Wow.
And then he really pulled it back, of course, because he's a wonderful comedian. But they were just, you know. And then I went on, and I was doing 15. And I'd seen the reception that Matt had, and I knew it was going to be hard as well, because it was a big function room at a pub, and the audience was seated on these giant round tables like at a wedding reception. And I think the nearest person to the stage was about 5 meters away, or it felt like that. So very much. And a little island back there, and there wasn't any stage lighting. It was just the lights were on in the room. And then anyway, I went on and I thought it's going to be hard. I got a joke that got runner-up in Dave's Jokes of the Fringe 2019. I've got that. I'm doing that right off the bat. Right? Yeah. But that is going to be the first thing out of my mouth when I get on stage. And I went on and I did it, and it got fuck all.
I mean,
and I just looked at them and I just went, okay, you got 15 minutes of it. And I was inexperienced, and I felt like I don't really know what I'm doing here, and they were just not interested. And I plowed on, and I thought, I'm gonna get them. And eventually, just towards the end, I got a big laugh and applause for one of my jokes.
Brilliant.
But it was not a good gig. Why am I forgetting his name? The headliner came on. You'll know exactly who he is. Ex-policeman, used to be in Humberside Police Force.
I know. It's on the tip of my tongue.
Yeah.
I know who you mean.
I don't know why I'm forgetting his name. He's wonderful. And he went on and he stormed it, took the roof off. They were all there for him. And yeah, me and Matt Richardson just sat there going, all right, well done.
It reminds me of the story. Other than this blog, the most creative thing I've ever done is write a play, which originally was going to be for the Fringe. It's only about 45 minutes. It's called The Applicant, and it's basically about me coming down from Carlisle to London, and I've never had a job interview. So it was me in a waiting room with looking at an audience, nervous, and then the interviewer come on and interview me. It was a series of interviews. So of course, to build the story up, I wrote monologues at the start. So it was me looking at the audience in the waiting room with the monologue, and then the interviews, and it would build up and build up. I ran out the first night we did this after 10 weeks of rehearsal, having written the thing, and completely forgot the monologue. And I was like a rabbit in headlights, and I was literally, I want to go home. I want to go to the pub. It was just, it couldn't have been the worst thing. And the interesting question to come from that, seeing as you, because you were an actor, do you think that's the same for a comedian if you forget your lines, or are the audience like another prop for you if you do and you can bring it back?
It's much easier.
Yeah,
I think because you've broken that. You're not working with a fourth wall with comedy, and you can actually just go, guys, I don't know what I'm doing at this point, and you can have notes, and that they see that human side of you, and you're allowed to show it. The more of that you show, the more that they love you for it. Whereas in theatre, and I have blanked on stage in theatre, and that's much harder because you can't let up.
Yeah.
You can't let anybody know that anything's going wrong. And the only thing that can happen is your other actors can pull you out of it.
That's what happened with me. Yeah. As soon as the other actor came on, we started bouncing off each other. and
Hmm.
certainly because I forgot the monologue, I became nervous, and because he was nervous at the start because he'd never had an interview, it sort of like worked, and he came on, and then we were back in and we were away.
Yeah.
So it's fascinating. Yeah.
My favourite story about forgetting lines, and this wasn't me, it was another actor, it was great. This was a long time ago. I was maybe 19 and I was in a production of Hamlet. I was playing Horatio or something like that. Anyway, Hamlet didn't know his lines. Um, and
That's a good
we got to
start.
this scene. We got to this scene, really, really important scene where Hamlet kills Laertes, and that's kind of the reason why
Yeah,
everybody dies at the end.
yeah, yeah.
And Hamlet came on, we said a few things, and then Hamlet, the guy playing Hamlet, just froze, said the last line of the scene. Peck just heard his cue, blacked it out. We moved on to the next scene. Laertes wasn't dead. Um,
So you
we
could,
hadn't killed him.
the play just went to pieces.
Completely. We just have to just pretend we've killed him. Because all we have to talk about how he's dead in the next scene. And all he's done is
You can laugh about it now.
yeah.
Not then, now. Following on from that, though, how do you cope with any nerves before you go on stage? Do you ever suffer from nerves, and if so, how do you deal with them?
I suffer from nerves only when I'm at a new club that I haven't played before.
Right,
That's the most nerve wracking, I think.
right,
Um, other things I don't really get. I'm not really too phased by it. If I'm at a club and they're paying me and I've got a job to do
yeah,
and I've never played the club before, that can be quite nerve wracking.
yeah.
Um, I'm still one of those comedians who has a couple of pints before they go on stage.
Wow,
So yeah,
that's brave.
if I'm playing a new club, I'll just quietly have like I'll just quietly have 2 drinks before I go on, and that will just calm me a little bit. I'm not making the mistake of thinking getting drunk makes you funny,
Yeah, no.
but just do what you would do to relax at home before you go on stage. Do you know what I mean? Just try and
Yes.
just chill out.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You've got to try and just calm and then away. Would
Oh
you?
yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's the difference between theatre and comedy is just unreal
Yeah,
because you're going on stage in a theatre production, um, and they're like, okay, let's have some focus time. Let's everybody sit and be really quiet and go over their lines and meditate. And in comedy, people just kind of just go and have a cigarette or read their phones or just chat shit with each other in the green room and then go, right, I'm off. I much prefer it. It's so much better.
yeah, 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 yeah. Um, would you say that when you walk on stage and you get your first laugh, any nerves that you may have had go because the audience are laughing, or is it when you speak into the microphone, or what is it? If there's
Yeah.
any at all.
I think it's yeah. For me, it's that first laugh.
Yeah,
I think um, a lot of the time I'm not nervous before I get there. Um, but if I am nervous and I get up to the mic and I get that first line out, which is exactly what I was trying to do in Top Cliff,
yeah, yeah,
trying to get that first laugh, and it never fucking
yeah.
came. Um, but once
I'm
you
sorry
get
to
that
bring that
first laugh, and
up.
I mean, you've seen me a few times. What I do at the beginning is I just tell a couple of easy jokes,
Yeah,
easy, silly jokes, just to prove to people that I can tell a joke.
yeah,
Because you've got to just kill off the tension in the room of, is this going to be shit? Because that's
yes,
what the audience are thinking. They're just going, is this going to be, oh, this isn't crap?
yeah, yeah,
Because that's going to be hard to watch.
yeah,
It's not about, the tension that they're feeling isn't about, oh, this is going to be boring entertainment. It's hard to watch someone have a bad gig. It's
yeah. Well,
everybody's in it
believe
together
me,
when
I've
something
seen
goes
many.
badly. Yeah, yeah, it's special. Um, but anything you can do to alleviate that tension within the audience, that you know what you're doing, um, straight away alleviates the tension in you that it might go badly as well. So that's why I always start my shows really friendly, just easy jokes to ease
Yeah,
people
yeah, yeah. So,
in.
following on from that, how do you remember your routines? Do you have a way of remembering all the jokes or what you're going to say, or do you have pointers in your head or anything like that?
I think I've always been quite good at remembering uh, large bits of text or just using the text as a climbing frame to get around. It's rare that I'm worried about getting it exact words because I'm always like, well, I might say something different and it might be funnier. I like to keep it very in the moment. There's some jokes and some stories that they need that rhythm of the same words and the same rhythm to get you there. But I'm not someone who worries about it overall too much with most of my stuff. It just kind of flies out of me when I get on stage. It's a different something just changes in me. I go into a performance mode and it's all there. I did my debut show was called Right Hand Man. I did that at the 2019 Edinburgh Festival, and I took it to Hull Truck Theatre, and I hadn't I hadn't performed it in ages because I ended up performing it in November 2019, and I just kind of like left it. So before the show, I couldn't remember the show, and I was getting really stressed, and I got a piece of paper and I was like, I'm just gonna have to have it on stage. And then as soon as the show started, it was like my brain was a different person's brain. It just knew everything. It knew the timing. It knew the little moves I was making. It was like a muscle memory, and I don't know how I did it. But
amazing.
you just yeah.
I think once you've done a series of shows, you do remember the rhythm and you remember the delivery and all the rest of it. But it's fascinating that you believed that you didn't and then you did. You know that's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, isn't it amazing though if you think about it that it only worked when there was an audience in the room.
Yeah, yeah,
I mean, it's amazing, but it also makes so much more sense because the show is not the same thing
yeah,
if the audience isn't in the room.
yeah.
So your brain is not when you're trying to just run something over by memory. Your brain's going, "Where was the laugh? Where was the? We need to react. What I'm saying is the reaction to what they're saying. You know, that's the game here."
That's fascinating. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Let's move on. I'm very lucky to have my holiday at the Edinburgh Fringe. I go there every year. I go there for a week, and I see about 50 shows. And loads of friends come up, and it's amazing. And I've been going since 2005. I think I've only missed the two because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
Tell me about your experience of the Edinburgh Fringe. When did you first go up? Did you go up as a punter? Were you an act? What do you think of it? What's your view of it?
Yeah. The first time I went to the Fringe was 2010, and I just went as a punter.
Right.
And I was only there for 2 days, but I was completely overwhelmed by what was on, the amount of things that were on.
Yeah.
And I ended up not seeing anything on the first day, and I just went to the art gallery.
Right.
Because it was just too much to kind of take in.
Yeah.
But then the next day, it's like, well, okay, I guess you just go and see anything, and because there was no real plan of what I was seeing. And then obviously I had a huge break and I didn't return until 2017. Now, my first Fringe was okay, but my first gig was in May 2017, and then I did the Fringe in 2017. I know, and that is inexperience on my part.
Wow.
But because the show that was in my head was the from the blog that I've been writing all that time.
Yeah.
That material was just there. I just needed to put it in order and then learn it. So I didn't actually have to work on it too much. And still at the time, I was trying to work out if it was going to be theatre or if it was comedy. We ended up saying it was comedy, and I just went up there on my own. I did just the tonic lunchtime slot, and it was a watchable show. Like, people enjoyed it. It was good. The problem is, nobody told me that if you do a 50-minute slot, that counts as your debut. That was my debut.
Yeah.
So I accidentally debuted without even knowing it.
Wow.
And it was all right. It was an all right show. It was I remember speaking to a couple of people in comedy afterwards, and they were like, "Well, it was a nice show, but we wouldn't know where to place you because it was so theatrical. But then it was stand-up comedy, and then after that show was the point where I went, well, I want to focus on doing stand-up comedy because I want to be seen as a comedian. And then once I'm seen as a comedian, anything I do is comedy.
Yeah.
And then you can start bringing elements of theatrics back into it. But because you've set yourself up as the genre of comedy, and that's what people recognize you for, there's going to be no questions asked that this is comedy, this isn't theatre.
Yeah. What was interesting, though, having heard you say that, was that if you went straight into the Fringe from your first gig, like you said, you had one gig in May and then you were in the Fringe, the experience of something like that is extraordinary and makes you bulletproof, I can imagine.
Yeah, I think I managed to get a couple of previews of the show in, so I think I'd maybe gigged about 10, 15 times.
Yeah.
But I certainly didn't go there with this idea of, oh, my show's going to hit the big time. I went there with quite a realistic mindset of, I want to get good at this.
Yeah.
And thankfully, like, my shows were okay. They didn't sell. I think my biggest audience was 30, and then most days it was 12s.
Yeah.
And it was a bit of a culture shock, but it did make me feel like, it's okay to dive into these things sometimes. And really, if I look back on everything that I've done, the way that I approach nearly anything in life, I've always gone ahead first with things and just seen if I can swim.
That's great. And did you, you've done more shows since 2017. You did one in 2019. Were you there 2018 as well?
I wasn't there 2018, so I did 2019, and that was what I'd like to call my official debut, really. That was really where I landed and established myself, I think. I was back in 2022 after the break, because it was a shame, really, because I had a great 2019 and got some great reviews, got put on the Dave joke list and stuff like that. And I was like, here we go, let's get some momentum going. And then obviously the pandemic hit, and it was a bit like starting again. 2022, it was a good show, but I didn't enjoy it. Did not enjoy that show. That was a show that I approached all wrong.
Right.
I approached that with the voices of critics in my head, and I approached it with what I thought the industry wanted. And it was written. There was my heart just wasn't in that show.
Right.
And it was good. It was it was decent. It wasn't good enough, I don't think. But it taught me a lesson of I've just got to write with my own voice now. I've just got to do my thing and not worry about this sort of narrative arc all the time and worry about what people want and worry about what the industry wants. So for the year after that, last year, 2023, I decided to scrap narrative completely, and really just do a load of random stories and thoughts that were very, very loosely linked on the TV show Come Dine With Me, but not really. And I had such a good time doing that show. It really freed me up as a writer. And I was on the Free Fringe. I had multiple sellouts, like, because it was just brilliant. People were having so much fun. It was like a boozy sort of, open mic in a pub sort of vibe. It was great. And that show got shortlisted for the Amuse Moose.
Yeah.
And I remember that happening. I'm going, well, I'm just trying to piss about here, and but the difference between that show, which was Dear Lord, What a Sad Little Life, and the show the year before, which was After Party, was my heart was in the show last year, and people could tell that I was enjoying myself. And even when it went badly, I was still loving it. And even though the other show was much more densely written and structured and had all the things there, that internal energy wasn't. I was probably dead behind the eyes, whereas last year I wasn't.
Would it be fair to say that the show last year that you enjoyed more because of the reasons you just explained, do you think you've found your niche in comedy with that last year, and is that the way that you're developing your comedy?
Yeah.
Is that fair to say? Because you're happier doing the style of comedy you were doing in the show last year as opposed to the year before?
I think what it's done is it's just opened me up. It was a sort of wipe the slate clean show.
Right.
Of let's do something completely different to what I've been doing.
Yeah.
And then I can take that experience and maybe merge the two styles. I think the show that I'm writing at the moment is going to be a sort of amalgamation of both styles.
Yeah.
Because I do like writing structure.
Yeah.
But this is a show that I really believe in. This is a story that I think is rooted, within a part of some of the stuff that's happened has made me who I am today.
Yeah.
Whereas the After Party show, that was me just coming up with the structure and coming up with the narrative because that's what I thought people wanted. But it's certainly allowed me to start finding different elements to my comedy, which is the sort of the unhinged clown sort of.
Yeah.
That's sort of started to come out of me, where I can act and pretend to be a lot more sort of bitter and sad than I am playing a character at that point. And if people get it, they get it, and it's been good when they have, to be honest. And I have been getting some little, like, just slightly cult following fans that are coming through now, and I'm like, this is good.
That's great. That's really good. To date, what's been your comedy highlight then?
Oh, that's hard to say.
Have you got one? You must have.
It's not to say that there hasn't been really good moments. You know what it was? It was just little moments. Like, I always look back on this as just one of the funniest things I've ever seen. And it was when I did the Fast Fringe show for Chortle, but they booked out the Bloomsbury Theatre, which holds about 500 people.
Yeah, know it well.
I think about 90 people came. So we were all backstage, and we all knew who was on, and there was loads of people I knew, like Jen Ives and Alexis Stubis was there, and loads of comedians. John Hastings was on. Love John Hastings.
Yeah, brilliant.
And then this guy just suddenly there was this guy just stood among us, just dressed as Hitler.
Wow.
And I was looking at the lineup, going, "There isn't. It doesn't." Okay, I thought John Hastings was on last, and John Hastings was on, and he said, "All right, I'm not your last one. Don't worry. I'm going to do like 3 minutes, and then some guy dressed as Hitler who's going to sing Frank Sinatra songs is going to come on." And I went, "What?"
Yeah.
And then I know, you know who it is, right?
I know.
And then Alexis looked at me and he went,
"Yeah." But I'm sure I've seen the act.
Frank Sinatra.
That's right.
Frank Sinatra.
He's brilliant.
And no one was told about it. No one, like, it just surprised us all. And then the intro, and then he walked on and started doing his act, and it went really well. And we were all just going, "This is," but it's so absurd, so weird. And now this year, last year at the Fringe, me and John Hastings were there. We were both doing Fast Fringe the next day at the Pleasant, and we were with the people producing it, and we were reminiscing about how mad that was. And John was like, "Well, get him back on. I know he's here. It'd be hilarious if you just sent him on, because how the hell were they? Like, is that ever going to react?" And then we got an email about 11 in the morning going, "So, yeah, he's available and he's on. And since you guys found it so funny and absurd, like the idea, we'd like to invite you to come and gig as well." So I saw John, and we both just hugged each other, and he went, "This is one of those beautiful moments in comedy that we're never going to forget."
That's wonderful. That's so good. Because his act.
I mean, it's a random highlight, but it's just a funny
brilliant.
Yeah.
He has made a career out of that act, doing exactly that all the time. I think he just does 20 minutes, but it's the most perfectly formed 20 minutes.
But what we were laughing at is, how do you sit down one day, and come up with that?
That's the point. Unbelievable. Who are your favourite comedians, past and present? Did you have comedy growing up at all, or?
Yeah. I mean, I think I'm probably going to be about the 800th person on the podcast to say Stuart Lee was one of the first people. He's a wonderful comedian. I've been like loads, but he was the first comedian that I saw back in that early sort of 2000 era that was doing something different, because I knew I liked stand-up, but then my cousin showed me a DVD of I think the special is just stand-up comedian, and I was like, this is so different. This is really, there was something about it that just kind of awoke something in me, and I've always been a huge fan of him.
He's amazing.
Also, people like, I love the conversational style that Mark Maron seems to pull off. And he just sits on that stool and you just feel like you're at a fireside chat with him. But he has a sort of sad clown. Both of them have a sort of sad clown persona that they bring out. I really love that in them. And then someone I use as a case study when I'm teaching stand-up, people that have never done it before. Well, to acting students who know how to perform. I get Jem Brister's live at the Apollo set.
She's superb.
Because I think it is one of the most put together, effortless pieces of stand-up I've ever seen.
And she's also one of the best at getting angry. She's brilliant. She's so brilliant.
Terrifying on stage. That point is like a swan, isn't she?
She's
But then you meet her off stage, and she's the sunniest, loveliest person. But she's got that.
Before she was lovely. She's absolutely wonderful, lovely woman. But you wouldn't mess with her on stage.
No,
she's just
got that. She's hard as nails on stage. And she owns that room, just like really slowly walking around, then stopping and staring at someone. It's wonderful.
I've been a big fan of hers for years.
Mhm.
Anybody else?
Um, Off the top of my head, I can't think. There's loads of comedians that I love gigging with
There
on the
is
circuit at the
there's
moment.
so many of them. I mean, my
Yeah,
the very first gig I ever saw was Les Dawson, age 7, on
yeah.
holiday in Scarborough, and then a year later we saw Tommy Cooper, and I got the bug,
Hmm.
and the curtains opened with Tommy Cooper, and he's lying on a bed. There's
Hmm.
nothing happened. He's just asleep on a bed, and one woman in the crowd pisses herself laughing, and
Hmm.
nothing's happened, and it trickles round, and everybody's crying with laughter. And after about 5 minutes, he pops his head up. He goes, "What? Has somebody come on?" And everybody just collapsed with laughter. And I think the genius of him was that he didn't realise how funny he was, even although he knew exactly what he was doing. But he
Hmm.
didn't realise how funny he was, and that's why he was great. That's why he was great.
Yeah, it's a little bit well that Norm Macdonald used to, not that the styles were anywhere the same, but this they were the smartest man in the room pretending to be the dumbest man in the
Yeah,
room.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
That's brilliant.
it's
Yeah,
so good. Yeah.
yeah. So that was the start of it, and then I started writing everything down. I've got loads of highlights. I've got the British Comedy Guide are asking me in my because I'm celebrating 50 years this year.
Yeah.
They want my top 20 gigs, so I'm busy trying to compile them. So
Wow.
I would say Bill Hicks
Gosh.
is in there. So Bill
Hmm.
Hicks at Manchester Royal Exchange. He came on at midnight, and I've never seen such a command of a room. He was
Hmm.
extraordinary. Probably it will be the first time I ever saw Harry Hill was downstairs at
Oh,
the
wow.
King's Head
Yeah.
30 years ago, before he was famous, and he's got my favourite ever opening line to any gig. He brushed past me, jumped up on stage, and went, "Ladies and gentlemen, I'm really sorry I'm late. I had to have a testicle brought down," and there was a pause and a laugh, and then he said, "From Derby," and then he was away. And when I met him 20 odd years later, 30 years later, I told him this. And he said, "Oh, Rich," he said, "I still tell that joke to this day." And that's the wonder of him. He's so off the wall that who doesn't like
Mm,
Harry Hill? I think he's one of the
he's
best.
wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's no one like him. No one. And I don't
What's
think anybody
also
could really try and emulate him either.
Yeah, yeah. What's also great about him is that I really admire him that he's done the TV stuff and then he's come back into
Yeah.
the clubs. He just loves to
Yeah.
perform, you know,
That's the
and
best way, isn't it? It's really nice when you see people.
yeah,
You see some comedians that once they get the TV, they never come back to the clubs.
yeah, yeah,
Um, and there's no, that's fine. That's them. But I can't see myself ever doing that.
no,
Um, the the clubs is where it's just that's part of it. It's the point
yeah, yeah,
is doing that.
yeah.
Yeah.
When one of the highlights was just last year, I went to the Hull Festival for the first time, which was fantastic. I love the two that run it there, Gary and Jed, and
Oh, wonderful people.
yeah,
Absolutely love them.
Gary
Yeah.
Jennison is hilarious, and
Yeah.
so's Jed, yeah, and they'd booked Frankie Munro, um, uh, uh,
Yeah.
um, what's he called, Joe Kent Walters, and on the Monday he'd won the BBC New Comedy of the Year award, and on the
Mm.
Thursday nobody had ever heard of him, and I thought,
Yeah.
what's this? And I was on the front row. He was taking the piss. I was on stage with him as his stooge. It was hilarious, and he got a standing ovation. And I thought
Oh, that's great.
that's the name to it, and he's everywhere this year. He's all over the place. He's going to do well.
No, I can
It's
see that. I was really impressed with I was really
yeah,
impressed with what I saw on the new comedian of the year. But you're right. It came out of nowhere.
yeah, yeah,
Um, well, not out of nowhere, but it's known on the circuit, smaller
yeah.
places and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And now it's
There's like a
stratospheric.
mixture of Mighty Boosh, Johnny Vegas, Reeves and Mortimer. It's like all mixed into one,
Mm.
and it's such a
I
great
mean,
thing.
someone who's had a stratospheric rise for me is Laura Smith,
Oh
and I think
yeah,
she's
superb,
one
superb.
of the best comedians going right now.
Yeah,
It's like she headlined a gig that I was doing. She headlined the Broadway Catford, which is run by Jacob Hatton. It's a
yeah,
really
yeah.
good gig. Recommend that. Um, and I had a good time. But she blew the roof off, and she's been doing comedy less years than me, and some people have just got this in them,
Keep
and
going,
like
my friend,
it's
because you're
just great to
talented.
watch. Yeah, just great to watch. And I was talking to her because she was talking to me about the Fringe and stuff, and she went, I don't think I'd like it." And I went, "Laura, you don't have to go. Like the only, a lot of the reason a lot of us go is to get to the level that you're on.
Yeah,
Um, Go for a week, absolutely, but don't do a full stint at the Fringe if you don't feel like it. You don't have to do it."
yeah. But I think certainly from interviewing you all, what I'm getting is it's all about experience. The more you put in, the more you get out.
Mm-hmm.
Is that
Yeah,
correct?
it is.
Yeah.
I wrote an article last year about how um, I got some success quite early on in my career, and obviously that was beneficial, but there was some ways that it was detrimental because suddenly people were apprehensive about booking me for fives and tens at small gigs because they thought that I'd be demanding something a bit more. So the gigs that I was doing these sort of semi-pro nights, and then pro nights,
Right.
and always feeling like I needed to prove to myself and everybody else on the lineup that I deserved my place there, which meant that I wasn't trying any new material. I was just tried and tested material at 90% of my gigs, because it was rare that I was kind of going somewhere where I felt comfortable to try new stuff. Um, I've since got over that, and I'll go to a good lineup like you saw So Far So Funny.
Yeah.
I'll go to a good lineup and I'll try some new stuff. I feel confident that I can do that. But in my
You
earlier
shone that night.
years, I
You
I
absolutely
felt
shone that night.
quite hmm?
I was just saying you shone
Yeah.
that night. You were the best thing on.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it was actually a really nice night, Matt.
Yeah.
And
Sorry,
it was the
sorry, I
first time
interrupted
that
you.
don't worry. Yeah, I'm glad that I've got to the stage where I can go to kind of biggish lineups and feel like I don't have to prove to everybody that I deserve my place there.
Yeah.
Because I rose fast and I thought everybody was going to be looking at me going, "Who's this person? Has he got in through the back door because he's
Yeah,
got
yeah.
a disability and he's talked about that?" And all this was just playing on my head. But yeah, it was a good night that though. The So Far So Funny, and
It's a
and
very
it was
good
I had fun, and
club
it
that
was
she's done. Yeah.
yeah,
And, um, like
it's nice to have
me,
a comedy night as well.
yeah, very much so. Like me, do you go to a lot of comedy gigs as a member of the audience?
Mm, I did.
You do.
I do. I actually went to this was last year. I went to the Monday Club at Museum of Comedy.
Oh yeah.
I just walked in, and David Hardcastle, who runs it, he went, I haven't booked you. And I went, "I'm just here to watch." And he went, "What?"
So you're popular.
And then I said, "Yeah." I said there was obviously some comedians that I knew, and they were like, "What do you want?" I was like, "No, I'm just watching." And they were like, "What's going on? What's wrong with you?" I think someone actually called me a psychopath. But
Brilliant. That's brilliant. If you're on a bill of comedians, like we started so funny, would you, if you were on first, would you stay and watch the rest of the comedians?
yeah, it depends. It depends. I think in earlier years, I may have done, but if I know if I don't know anybody on the lineup that's coming on the end, I'll stay and support a friend sometimes. But I'm one of these comedians that I've got responsibilities outside of
Of
comedy.
course.
I've got a job to get to in the morning. I've got a flat that I like living in,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
of course. Yeah, you've got a
um,
life other than comedy.
I feel like it's up to the discretion, and I don't really feel like people should be chastised for getting off if they need to. Because a lot of these things, there's a certain comedy night that goes on for a long time, and it's one where everybody's very very new, and it's just people bomb bomb bomb, and then it finishes at 11:30, and
I think I know the one you
the
mean.
new actor often told like the stayer, if you leave, you're never coming back, and that's not okay.
That's
Yeah,
not okay. No. Um, I've so much enjoyed chatting to you. You've been a great guest and so knowledgeable as well, like me. It's fascinating listening to you all. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we go? What have you got any podcasts? Are you doing any writing? What's your social media handle? Anything like that?
yeah. My social media handle is at the R Stott. Um, I think on Instagram it's at the R Stott with an underscore, and on
Yeah,
Twitter it's just at the R Stott.
yeah.
Um, very active on Twitter. Even though I hate that that's the social media that I do well at because it's owned by that maniac now.
Yeah.
Well, that's the social media I do well at because it's words and stuff.
Yes.
Um, Writing, well, depending on when this goes out, I'm taking my new show to the Edinburgh Festival, and that's going to
Yeah.
be called Trade.
Yeah.
Don't know what venue it's going to be at. Don't know what time it's going to be at. But it's going to be a nice hour of comedy about my time at Borough Market
That's good.
and about grafting and
Is
all the
that
things that we sort of don't like and like about it.
is that going to be for the full run?
If I get a venue where I think I can do a full run, I'll do a full run.
Right.
If not, I'll do a 2 week sort of.
Yeah.
We'll call it a work in progress, but it'll be with a view of getting a big venue the year after. It's just one of those shows that I think needs an invested audience.
And
Um,
I know it won't be by the time this goes out, but as I say, you are doing a preview of it, or you're doing a work in progress of it at the Leicester Comedy Festival in February,
yeah, yeah,
and I'll
yeah.
see you there for that.
I'll see you there. That'll be great.
That'd be really good. Thank you so much for your time. I'm so looking forward to seeing you again, and thanks so much for being my guest.
Thank you.